Welcome, Wisdom Café community. I'm talking today with Claude Steele, our Executive Vice Chancellor and Provost here at UC Berkeley. Hi, Claude. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you for sitting down with me today to share your leadership story.
Yeah, my pleasure. So far.
So your career has included stints at the prestigious private institutions, Stanford and Columbia, and also other public universities. How have those experiences prepared you for your current role here at UC Berkeley?
I think they give a lot of insight into how universities work and the way in which they're organized, how their organization affects the lives of all of us, staff, faculty, students, and the like. So you get from that experience, or at least I take from that experience, some a sense of seeing alternative models and what their implications are, and I think that helps you make decisions when you're in a job like this one.
What do you find the most rewarding and the most challenging aspects of your role?
It's very rewarding to be part of the Berkeley mission. This is such an amazing university. I've been saying it's the best in the nation, and I do mean that because it does better. It's really good on two critical dimensions. One is academic excellence. Nobody is better than us that way, and we're also an amazing machine of upward mobility, as the New York Times just pointed out about us. And we do it all at scale, huge scale compared to our private peers, the Ivies and the like. So I don't know of another university that does both of those things so well, that opens up opportunity for so many people and at the same time is so good as an academic institution. So being a part of that mission is really exciting, and the challenge is hoping you do a good job with it, and that you make good decisions and help guide, in my case, the academic side of the institution as well as you possibly can. You want to continue that tradition.
Okay, thank you. What defining moments have occurred in your life and or career, and how have they shaped you?
Defining moments. My life seems to have taken on its definition more gradually. I don't remember anyway, great epiphany of a moment where here ever after I'm going to be a certain different way than I was before. It seemed to be much more gradual, incremental change, I think. I suppose I fell in love with psychology early in college, and that was a big deal. You do experience, I think this is one thing that, if you're lucky, happens in college, that you have a lot of identities from, your cultural background, your religion, your race, your gender. You have a lot of identities, but one thing that can happen in college is that you begin to identify with a certain field, and maybe profession, and that really was something that made a big difference in my life. Is encountering the field of psychology and taking that on, being a psychologist as an identity. So that becomes a big part of who you are. That's as big a part of your identity almost as the ones you were born with sometimes. So that's a big orientation experience in my life.
So for some students, they take a more meandering path to find what that thing is, and for you it sounded like you just knew when you discovered it.
I always loved psychology. I loved thinking about it, reading about it. I would read about it on my own. When I found it, I just got turned on. So it was a big change.
As you look back, what core beliefs have guided your choices and your actions?
It's really hard to do it, and I'm way imperfect at it, but I think the Pope pointed this out a week or so ago. The golden rule is pretty good, and its elaborations in complicated situations. Treat people like you would like to be treated, and I think to the degree that we can, rise to that, the better everything works, and so that's a big guide. I mean, it's a simple thing. Be nice. That's another real simple thing. It doesn't mean repress points of view or anything of that sort. It just means how you do it. behave in ways that humanize your experience and the people around you. So those things are very important in my as aspirations at least.
What does it mean to you to be a leader?
I like the general rubric of service. That really is what you're doing. Being a leader is interesting because you compared to being just a faculty member, I think you have to park your ego more. And at the same time, you have to have the strength to lead, to go out and point directions, even though sometimes you don't have perfect evidence in behalf of that. You could never move if you had to wait for perfect evidence. So I think that's the challenge of leadership is taking a service approach and thinking of yourself that way. It just opens up so many more constructive ways of helping and steering an institution like this, for example. But you do have to have the strength to make decisions and try to move things in a given direction. So it's that art that is at the heart of leadership, it seems.
So the service model of leadership, is that something you learned from observing other leaders that you admired, or is that something you learned from your own trial and error?
Both.
Okay.
Both. I constantly look at other leaders and how they do it, and I work with great leaders, and you talk about it, how to do it. I haven't taken a graduate seminar, but I'm sure there's a lot known that would be helpful, and I do try to read an awful lot. I have dozens of books on the topic.
There are thousands of books.
Probably thousands. I don't own all of them, but I sure own a lot of them. My wife is irritated with all the books I buy. But so I do think about it a lot. How to play a role like this, how to function in a role like this.
Do you have a book you'd recommend in particular on the topic?
It's not so much a book on leadership, but it is a book on how to regulate a career, how to manage a career. It's a very obscure book. It's called Advice to Young Faculty, I think, and it's by a person named Robert Boyce. And I used to give it to my graduate students because it helped organize. This is how to do it. And one of the core concepts there was to work not in long binge-like episodes, which is what we tend to do. I certainly did. Where you got to get something done, you put it off, you lock the door, you go in all weekend. That doesn't turn out to be, in the long run, a very effective way to work. So
your primary professional areas of study include stereotype threat. How do you think those concepts actually impact or apply to staff?
Stereotype threat, I think, is a constant feature in everybody's life. We all have, identities, and there are negative stereotypes out there about all of them. And when we're in circumstances where those are relevant, we can feel some threat of being judged in terms of them. And I think it's helpful just to know about that, that feeling we have, that discomfort. It may be coming from that. And there was at Stanford, there were a group of students, minority students, who had a T-shirt, and on the saying on the T-shirt was, "It's just stereotype threat." So knowing about it can kind of relieve some of that pressure sometimes. And I think some of the strategies for dealing with stereotype threat can be helpful in managing one's life, one's career, decision making. I think one thing we do is over effort in response to deflect being seen stereotypically sometimes. I think that's true for all of us, that we can fear that we're going to be seen as not trying hard or not working hard. And to deflect that, we stay too late, we skip lunch, I mean, we do a lot of things that really is a self-imposed kind of pressure and doesn't help in being productive in the long run. So that's one thing that comes to mind that I do see on a daily basis, that we all have to prove to each other all the time that we're always on all the time. And it gives life it can give life in an office a certain heaviness that I think we don't need as much of as there sometimes.
If you were to sit down today with a young new staff member, what advice would you give them as they start their career?
Probably be general advice. Work consistently, not in binges. I repeat that advice. Learn the larger context of your work. The more you learn, the more enjoyable and meaningful it's going to be. Don't reduce your work just to the narrowest part of the task, even when that's a big part of the responsibility, is maybe something very narrow, maybe something even very tedious. I think that's true in all jobs, certainly true in mine. But the more you know about the larger context of the institution, the way it's organized, how it functions, the more you can contribute, the more you're going to feel that way. I do know most of the jobs I've had that when you don't like them, it's when you don't feel you're going to be able to really contribute much. And sometimes you can control that, not all the times, I mean. But to the extent that you can, I think that's a constructive way to look at it, to find ways to be that what you do can be contributive, and that you feel better, and you're more naturalistically motivated when you get that frame.
When your career is complete, what do you want people to remember you for? What are you most proud of?
I certainly take great pride in my family, and that's a big deal. So I just want them to. I was thinking about this the other day. This is a strange thing, but my father has been dead for probably 40 years, and I still love him, and that keeps him alive. And I want my family to feel that way.
Oh, that's really touching.
Yeah, I think it's part of the human experience, and I want that. So that would make me. That would be very gratifying. I don't know about pride indeed, but it would also be deeply gratifying.
Thank you. That's very nice. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our staff audience?
This is a great institution to be part of. I deeply appreciate what you do. I think the better we get along with each other and respond to each other's needs and use each other's strengths and the like, the better world, the better institution we're going to have. So I think the staff have a huge role in that. I appreciate all the good efforts in that direction.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.